I also read an article the other day that said one of the after effects of people who had COVID is actually that they're all of a sudden struggling with mental health disorders that are being diagnosed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the She Just Got Going podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurship and career advice. I am joined with Alicia Coertze, who is a lecturer at one of the institutions around here in Pretoria, South Africa, and also someone who's working towards becoming a psychologist. So she's completed her honors, and she's pretty much a counselor as well. So the counseling and lecturing, she gets exposure to so many people in the psychological field, and we just really felt that you would have seen her again in another episode, but we just really wanted to just talk more on the mental health side of things because we felt like it was a really important topic to touch on. And so Alicia works a lot with teenagers. You write courses around different mental health topics, and I think what you're doing is really awesome and so necessary. And we're just gonna jump right into it about that. So welcome again, Alicia.
Thank you
to the podcast. And I just wanted to speak to you about, firstly, so even if your own experiences come through here, what have you firstly seen in the space of South African mental health, and what resources are actually available out there? I know you're also part of the resources that are available, but really what resources are out there for people to seek help, because there's such a stigma around seeking help around it. And so the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Ella. I really appreciate the opportunity. And as a counselor, I really do see a lot of teenagers, students, young adults that are really suffering, especially in South Africa. Although there's that massive stigma, if your mental health is not okay, I can promise you that every single area of your life will really suffer underneath it. You can be super fit physically, you can have a great job, you can have a family, but if your mental health is not in a good space and you're not in a good space, it's going to flow into every single area of your life. A lot of people's first step is to just go to the doctor and get some medication, which is sometimes very helpful. But at the end of the day, your mental health really flows into everything that you do. So, I mean, a lot of the people that I see, teenagers, students, really suffering with mental health. I can also see in our South African statistics, the suicide rates have gone up tremendously, especially after COVID. I also read an article the other day that said one of the after effects of people who had COVID is actually that they're all of a sudden struggling with mental health disorders that are being diagnosed. So psychiatrists have seen a massive spike in disorders. And the thing about disorders and, depression and anxiety, it gets carried over through family lines. So you might have a predisposition for being anxious, and then as soon as something happens or there's an incident in your life or anything that might be traumatic, immediately that incident sparks that anxiety or that depression or whatever the case may be, and then people struggle with that quite often. I think the saddest thing for me is a lot of people don't know where to find help. And where do you start? Do you start to find someone that you can trust with your staff, and where do you find someone that you can really speak to and trust? And a lot of people end up not choosing anyone. A lot of people end up not seeking mental health because it's inaccessible, it's too expensive. Maybe they don't want, people to know that they are doing it. So there's a lot of things that goes on that people don't, that makes people struggle to find the right help. Where to start? I think if finances is, a problem, which I do think, psychologists are extremely expensive. There's a lot of platforms that offers free counselling, and I will actually give you all the information to share on the page. There's a lot of platforms where you can receive free counselling. Most cap their sessions, but you can receive free online counselling. At some places you can have face-to-face counselling for free. It's not with psychologists though, but it's mostly with people that are highly trained or are counsellors or have honours. But that's a really good first step to almost encounter that boundary. And you can just tell yourself that if the free session did not go well, at least it was free and it didn't cost me any money.
Didn't cost me anything.
But I can almost promise you, like, you just have to do that first boundary, that first step. And it's important, if you do need help, I want to tell you that if you are not okay mentally, to reach out, even if they reach out to this page, Ella, if they're listening to this and they feel like they're not in a good space, but to get a recommendation from someone that you know. I also have people that I will refer them to specifically because I trust them. I know how they work. I know the success rate they have. So, you know, not everybody is the same, but I have people I can refer to. But to find someone who can refer you to someone specific. So maybe go to your doctor and ask them for a psychologist referral, but don't just try and find a referral, or maybe go through a mental hospital institute or clinic or something and ask them there if there's anybody that they can see. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, the next question is, so it's awesome to hear that there's actually free resources available if you really cannot afford going to a psychologist, which also is such a pity in relation to the area of mental health. But yeah, what advice can you give to people from a personal level of what they can do to cope and manage their what they are going through? Obviously, like, they, in certain situations, they will need to see a specialist, but what can they do, you know, practically to sort of manage what they're going through until they actually get to a psychologist, get to a counselor? And because you've worked with teenagers, and so, like, what practical advice can you give there?
The first thing that I can say is, what makes it worse is when you keep it all to yourself. And so there's this element of co-regulation that we often talk about, is just by telling someone what you're facing and them almost regulating it back to you immediately relieves a whole lot of, like, tension, and people immediately feel better after having just a conversation with someone and having that co-regulated. Now, choose your person wisely, you know, but you know that there might be someone in your life. And if you are really going through a difficult time, I mean, I know the kind of thoughts you have. Like, you might feel like maybe it's just better to end things, or maybe you think it might be helpful to harm yourself, or maybe you are struggling to get out of bed in the morning, but you know your warning signs, and you know when things are starting to alter your way of living into a harmful way, or you might find harmful coping mechanisms. A lot of people resort to drinking a little bit more, or resorting to old coping mechanisms like smoking, or having unsafe sex, or whatever the case may be, to try and cope with this. But these are the kind of things that you can look out for, to almost say to yourself, I don't think I'm okay at the moment, because I'm using alternative means to cope. And so the first thing I would say is to find someone in your life, and to identify someone in your life that you feel like you can just go and have a coffee or a conversation with. Someone that you can talk to, and then for them to just sit and listen and just almost regulate it back to you. And just by expressing that and getting it out, first of all, you get a little bit of more perspective over your own situation. Second of all, you feel supported because someone else was listening. And thirdly, you just got out what was bothering you. And oftentimes in our sessions, when I sit with teenagers or students, they talk about everything that's bothering them, and after the session I didn't do a single thing, but they feel so much better, and they leave the session and they feel like a new person, just because they had the opportunity to talk and for someone to just listen. And on the sub side, I also want to say to the people who, you know, if ever anyone comes to you and talks to you about, you know, what they are going through, there are some steps that you can do to really, we call it holding the space for someone. So you are sitting there, you are present, you are listening, you are acknowledging them there, but you are holding that space. So you are not trying, well, you shouldn't try to fix the problem in that moment, or give wise answers, or try and save this person, but just by sitting there listening, saying things like, wow, that must have been so hard for you, or I'm so sorry that this is what you've been facing, or any comforting advice and just sitting there and holding that for that person. And it's like you are just taking that load and you are holding it for them for a little while. And after that, it already feels lighter to them. And I always say sometimes we even have to hold the hope for someone else, because they might be so hopeless that we need to be the little hope in their life until they can regain that. So even if you're on the receiving end and you are the person that listens, just listening and being present and acknowledging the person's emotions and feelings is the first step. So I think that's the first thing, is just to find anyone. And even if there's no one in your life that you trust, I promise you there's someone, whether you are not even close to, that you just feel like connection to. You feel like you could just, phone them for a coffee or whatever and have a conversation to just say, you know what, I'm not okay and I just need to talk to you a little bit about it. And that's the first step to reaching out. Yes, I feel.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And what's your take on then toxic positivity that we hear?
Oh, people are gonna hate me. No, I'm joking. Sometimes, you know what, I think oftentimes people try to put the positive plasters on like a broken wall. Like, I always say people want to try and put the silver lining on everything. So if you are telling me that, oh my gosh, I had a really difficult day and I felt like I was just driving everywhere, and I had to drive to my au pairing job and whatever, then that toxic positivity person will just say, oh, but at least you have a job. Yeah. That at least you have a job. And they just kind of, at least you have a car to drive around, or at least you have a busy day. There's some people that don't even have a busy day, and immediately that invalidates your feeling. And you feel like, oh, I wasn't allowed to feel that way. So I'm really like, that toxic positivity, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be positive at all. And there's really moments of encouragement where you have to encourage someone and build them up. But in that moment where they are opening up and telling you something about themselves, that moment you should hold the space and you should really listen to that person, and not try and just put the plaster, because that's a very immature thing to do, to actually say, oh, Ella, I don't really care about your day. Let's just move on. I'm not willing to go into that dark place with you. I just want to stay up here and say, okay, Ella, I'm sorry that you had a bad day, but at least you have a car. And that's what people do.
But I think we've also been like regulated to respond like that.
Yes.
Because we probably had so many people do it to us that it's like, this is now, again, like also like being Christian, like we know that we have to, always speak faith and speak a positive word, because our words have the ability to create our future for sure. But it's also the mental health side of it. Like they marry together. I feel like there isn't a conflict between what psychology says and what's in the Bible.
No,
like,
definitely
there isn't
not
a conflict. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. But now being a person, I think I've been guilty of toxic positivity. And not to, now for the people watching it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I've been so insensitive to this person. What do you have to say to another person that feels like, okay, but Alicia, what if I don't want to go to such a heavy place with that person because I'm not in a place to go to a heavy place with someone?
I think something you mentioned that also just triggered a thought by me was, I'm not saying you have to be like that with everyone, where you have to go there for that person. And oftentimes we think we need to always be positive. We always need to lift people up. But the thing is, sometimes to allow someone to go into that dark place, it actually helps them to come back up and to never go back there again. Otherwise, you keep on pulling them up, but they keep on going down, because they sometimes just need to go to that place. Also with people that are grieving, allowing them to grieve and to cry and to sit there with them and to hold the space for them and to just be present. And the opposite of toxic positivity as not negativity. It's not negativity at all. It's just being able to be present with that person and acknowledging what they are feeling.
Yes.
And then after that, to encourage them and say, you know what, I'm so sorry for what you've been through, but I know, and you can then come and you can say, but I know that there's hope, and then you can come with that. But to just first allow them to go there. Okay, but your question.
Yes.
Honestly, like, there's obviously people that we don't want to go there with that. And then, you know, to kind of just divert it and just say something like, I'm so sorry you've been feeling that way, and I really hope you have a better day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So to almost still acknowledge, but then, you know, not even go there.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to also, you'll be a sponge to a lot of people's situations.
Yeah, no, it's
But
true,
yeah.
because a lot of people can feel that way and be like, listen, I want to help, but maybe I'm at full capacity at the moment, or I'm feeling a little burned out myself. Because that's also a thing, actually. The term has left me now, but it's almost a thing of like burnt out from caring for people.
Yeah, compassion fatigue.
Yes.
And
And so, you know, people that go through compassion fatigue and actually just don't even want to go to that place because they. So actually, just explain a little bit, what is compassion fatigue?
So compassion fatigue is when, you know, you sit with someone and you cannot have compassion for people anymore. You actually get irritated by them going through a difficult time, or you get frustrated with people. Where you used to have compassion, it becomes a burden. And I want to say it's a bit twofold, because if you are giving, there's some point where you need to receive in order to balance that out. So compassion fatigue can be overcome if you also have a space where you can go and talk to others, to someone else, the way people are talking to you. But also to regulate it. I mean, there's definitely a cap also with counselling. Like, I cannot see more than 5 clients a day.
Wow.
Then I am absolutely exhausted. So I mean, oftentimes there's some boundaries that you also have to set in your own life. And but if you are a natural carer and you do feel like you're working with people every single day, first of all, you need to take care of yourself. So you need to, in your schedule, have time for yourself where you can rejuvenate. If it means putting off your phone at 8 o'clock at night so that you can have 2 hours of watching series or journaling or going to the gym or whatever, you need to do that for yourself. Because if you are not nourished, you start reaching a point of compassion fatigue. And it's compassion fatigue and burnout, it's basically the same thing. But then also to have a space where you are able to recharge with someone else. That's extremely important. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I think, like, obviously this one won't be as long as the other episodes, just because, like, it's just specifically a more specialized, like, episode and topic. But I guess on the topic of mental health, people like to hammer on the fact that, okay, now when you are able to find that help as an African child, finding like an African psychologist. So you've probably been exposed to that a little bit in your studies and stuff. And what's your view on that? Like, is it really important that coming from a certain background, you have to see a certain psychologist? Like, what is your view on that?
First of all, I think there's a lot of cultures, background things that do come in play. Diversity plays an exceptional big role. Also in psychology, we get really trained in the fact that we need to be able to work with diverse backgrounds and accept diversity. But of nature, it's who I am and everything. In terms of finding someone, it's really a personal preference. You need to find someone that you feel comfortable with. If there's some people who prefer just to see women, there's some people who prefer to see someone older. There's some people that prefer to see someone who's completely the opposite of them in culture, because they feel like their own culture might judge them for certain things. So it's really a personal preference in terms of that. And in terms of, you know, some household not understanding that aspect, I think there's a big change coming in, especially with our generation who's very open. But I mean, even from the Afrikaans perspectives, it's really like you must go and jog this mental health issue out of you. And there's a lot of households that do have that stigma around them. But I almost want to say, you don't have to go to a psychologist of the same culture or the same language or the same race or the same ethnicity or the same religion than you to be able to help you. They're never ever going to impose their own values on you. And you just need to be able to go to a place where you feel comfortable. And that's why I really say it's really, really a personal choice.
Awesome. Thank you for answering my question. So, I think the last bit is, I think I tried to ask it earlier on, and you did share a very good answer, but more about the practical coping part. For some people, you said they'll say you need to run it out of you, but there are proven benefits of exercise and stuff like that. So what do you think are just those ways of improving and managing your mental health?
Definitely having a good eating habits, balancing diet, having exercise incorporated into your day. Even just if you're not an exercisey person, go put on some tackies and just walk up your road. Just the fact that you are outside and you are just walking, or any form of exercise, is extremely important for our mental health. It really, on the brain side, it produces a lot of different chemicals in the brain that helps with the regulation of brain chemicals. And also it gives us the feel-good hormones. Another important thing, or something that they can do, is sitting in sunlight. So going outside and sitting in the sun, it also promotes that feel-good chemicals. So it's actually one of our natural combats for depression, is to sit in the sun. Now, obviously, if you've got major depression, it's not going to fix it all, but just being out and sitting in the sun does have a positive effect on our mental health. Some other techniques is also to journal. Journaling is very important. To sometimes every night or every morning before you go to bed, to have a gratitude journal where you write between 5 or 10 things that you are really grateful for the day. And then other coping skills can be breathing exercises. Breathing is one of our natural responses to slow our body down. If our heart starts racing and our palms are sweating, the only thing we can do is breathing. So a lot of breathing exercises. It's got a lot to do with mindfulness, which will be a whole other episode. But I mean, if you've never heard of mindfulness before, go and Google it. The benefits are incredible. But those are some techniques that I think is really helpful. Also spending time with people, loved ones that you really love. Pets have also a massive benefit. Being around animals and pets have really also proven massive effects. So just spending some time with your dog or your cat, and if you don't have, go to a petting zoo. The benefits are really incredible. It's really, really good just to be around animals sometimes.
No, I know that. I don't have any pets. I would just go to my friend's house and say, I'm here for the dogs and the dogs alone.
But and anything else that fills you up as a person, to make time for it, whether it's art, whether it is making something with your hands, whether it is gardening or doing gardening, and those are a little bit of more specialized things that you need to find in your own life, stuff that help you cope, and to really invest time into it. Start a new hobby. There's a lot of arts classes, go learn how to work with leather, make jewelry, but doing things with your hands is also definitely learn to make a new recipe.
Food.
But sometimes we put off a lot of our own personal hobbies, and those are actually some of our most important coping skills as well. So I hope that's helpful.
No, definitely. Again, because those are all very practical and achievable things you can do, to also regulate yourself and manage your mental health. Because again, like you mentioned, you touched on earlier, I think it was in the previous episode, or it could have been in this episode, sorry guys, but pretty much you were talking about your warning signs and just identifying when you're not okay. But it's also nice to know what you can be busy with, just to sort of almost keep yourself out of that place, because our mental health is also a very chemical thing. So also combating those chemicals. I had not a friend, but even just someone I went to school with that was doing these crazy form of exercise, and he was just saying, it's how he copes with his mental health. Like, that's how he gets out of that negative space. And if that's what he needed to do, like run crazy marathons, then that's what he needed to do. And it's different for every person, but there are those practical ways.
Definitely.
And if that is what can help, then never knock it till you try it.
Yes, definitely.
But because it's a like completely separate episode, I don't know if like you have repeated it in the previous one, but yeah, what do you have to say, like, to young people, old people, like, who are struggling, and just your word of encouragement?
I think there's nothing wrong with struggling mentally, and I actually think everywhere in every person's life, you're going to have a phase where you might struggle mentally. You might feel down, you might feel more anxious than normal. You might go through really some very tough situations that is really making you struggle mentally to cope. And first of all, I just want to say it's so normal, and it's so normal to have those things, and it's normal. And I want to encourage you guys, if you are in a bad space mentally, to seek out and find help, even if it is with people closer to you, but try and find help for those situations, and support in those situations. Also, most of these times of, where you might be in a bad mental state, it doesn't last forever. And, sometimes it's like waves. We go through seasons in our lives, but it's also not forever. And there's really help out there. And I'm pretty sure there's people in your life who you can reach out to. But if you are struggling, speak up. Like I said, the worst thing is to keep it to yourself. But to try and find help in your area or your environment, whatever the help is, I really recommend it. Yes.
Yeah. And obviously, like on a serious level, it then gets treated in a more serious way. Like we've seen cases of hospitalization or medication and stuff like that. And I know it's like, this is not just your standpoint, but what is your standpoint on that? Because I know a lot of people advocate against taking medication and all that stuff.
Medication is really actually an incredible tool. There's a massive stigma. I don't know where that thing came from, but medication, especially antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety medication, they often, what they do is when you go through these mental health episodes, your brain gets depleted from some chemicals, and it causes an imbalance in the brain. So immediately it throws out your different chemicals, different hormone levels. Burnout can trigger it, prolonged stress, a traumatic incident, and all of a sudden the brain processes more of some chemicals and less of others. And then by using an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, it gives the body a break, and it really just comes and it restores the balance in the brain. So there's a lot of different medication that you can use.
Because they have side effects.
Yes. So also be careful to who you go to. That would be my advice. And I'll also be able to give Ella some contact details if needed, but really be careful to who you go to. But medication is an incredible tool. There's some medication that you can be on for about 8 months, and as soon as you climb off, you never have to use it ever again in your life, because it immediately, well, unless you have maybe another incident, whatever, but that's also normal. But you can then get off of it, and your life will never be the same again. And I sometimes see people that refuse to use medication, and it really saddens my heart, because if you break your leg, you get a cast. If you have a intestinal problem, you go and you get an operation for it. And we are so quick to get operations because we want the quick fix, but medication is really so beneficial as well. So even being, hospitalized, I think it's also a really good space just to regather yourself, to really find intensive help in those moments. And so I really think it's not a bad thing at all. I am an advocate for it. I'm like, if you need help, get it. Just get it at the right places. That would be my advice, because there are some doctors that overprescribe medication. There are some hospitals that I would not advise, but it's really just go to the right places, and I promise you your life will really change. And it would be the best thing you ever do for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because like literally it's a pity though, because like you really put your faith into people in the healthcare system to know better and like not put you in a position where now you need to now dig yourself out of the healing process they tried to put you through. Like yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about the fact that I myself have been on medication.
Yeah, me too as well.
Yeah, and for me, it really just gave me, like, I felt that balance you spoke about, but then to not be dependent, but to realize, cool, if this is what normal should feel like, then this is what I slowly need to start working towards, and then actually incorporating those healthier habits into my life. Because like when I wasn't okay, like you said, like so many factors, like prolonged stress, like being stressed for very prolonged periods of time, not eating right, not exercising, and so that caught up with me, and eventually like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't know where this came from, but like if you had to go back and trace it, it's like, yeah, we can see exactly where this is coming from, and if medication can balance that out, if you can reach out to Alicia, please do, because like the last thing we want is for people to have like negative experience with medicine, because I had that, like when I was asking around at friends that had very negative experiences with medication, so they also said just be careful. And it made me fearful around the topic. So again, like if you can cut all of that drama out and have someone actually recommend someone who understands
definitely
that,
and it's just that little bit of alleviation to help you, because it gives you that, I mean, if you're struggling with depression, it's so hard to get out of bed. Like you don't want to wake up in the mornings, everything is slower, it's really hard. So when you drink medication, it makes all of those symptoms better. So you actually have time and space to then start healing emotionally, or to start to deal with whatever has caused that. But I mean, I think it's incredible. But definitely reach out, go to the right place, go with recommendations of people who have found certain doctors, beneficial. But don't just go to anyone. That is my advice.
And it's not like the be all and end all. Like for me as well, my faith played a big role. Lots of prayer, just obviously like walking out my relationship with God, but at the same time, like you said, if I break my leg, I can pray God heal the leg. But like there's still things I need to do. I need to go see a doctor, and I need to get a cast if it's broken. So.
And you drink pain pills because the leg is sore. So
it's not because you have like a lack of faith.
And then you trust God with your medication, and you say, God, I'm drinking this medication, I'm praying for my healing, and I promise you now, you will definitely see the benefits. Yes, so that is my advice.
It's great, but just take it or leave it, guys. It's free. but Alicia, thank you so much for just the insight that you shared in this episode. I know it may be shorter and a little bit different to the other episodes, but I don't think it's a topic we should shy away from.
No,
not. It is an entrepreneurship and career advice podcast, but it's crazy how like mental health features into all of it. Because again, I don't know why we don't want to just acknowledge that it is a part of the human experience, and it doesn't have to be this big, heavy, shied away upon thing. But if we can embrace that it's part of the process, and there's ways to manage it, and then you walk through that, I think it will just be a game changer for so many people. Because whether it's in your career, whether it's in starting a business, everyone has gone through that space.
Most definitely.
It's hard to get out of bed, and not just because like you're lazy, like on a mental level things are not okay. Maybe you've had other traumas completely unrelated to your career and your job that you've also had to deal with. And so like it's also dear to my heart to make those kind of resources available.
And I mean, if ever there's other mental health topics people want to know about, I mean, they should maybe comment it, or I don't know, whatever. But then I can definitely, I think we should talk about these kind of things. And I think people don't always have the right information, and I think that's something we need to get out there. So thank you, Ella. Thank you for this opportunity, and I really hope that this is beneficial for someone.
No, I'm so sure it will be, and thank you for being on this episode as well.
Such a pleasure.
Like I said, I will always leave the social media information, because like we said, like you're a lecturer, you're a counsellor, you've made courses, so you're also very involved in the resource space, and actually
definitely.
like things that can help people. So people must definitely also reach out to you.
Anytime.
And so thank you so much,
Awesome.
and all the best on your journey. I cannot wait for the day you become a psychologist, because
Yay!
you've already helped so many people, so I cannot wait for you to help even more people, Alicia.
Thank
and
you
thank
so
you for just being
much.
that example of resilience and persistence and staying true
Mm.
to your calling on your life. Because it's easier to give up, but
Yes.
you get those like very deep quotes, like what is it? The pain of regret is far worse than the pain of giving up, or
Yes.
something like that. So
Yeah.
no, just thank you for just being that example out there of not quitting,
Mm.
and like we know that your time
Awesome.
is coming. So thank you
Yes.
so much for this episode.
Such a pleasure,
And
Ella.
guys, tune in for the other episodes. Okay, cool.
Bye.
Bye.